if you're a technical software company operating in a new, fast-moving market, then the traditional SEO approach is very likely just a waste of your time. Let me explain. Here is an example search results page for agentic orchestration frameworks. Yeah. So here you would expect usually things which have to do with agent orchestration. This is fairly fast-moving, fast-developing market. There's a couple of options already on the market. People don't like many of them, and the vast majority of organizations don't yet use one. And so if you look at the results page, you will have a bunch of advertising, obviously. You will have some AI overview, and then you will have a couple of things over here, like an article on agentic AI frameworks from this company here, a Medium article, a Reddit thread, some more ads, and then you will have an IBM piece, and then you will have a Microsoft piece, and then another publication here. So you will have all kinds of stuff here. Yeah? And then imagine that you are a company that is looking to kind of make a splash in this space, and you want to enter the search results page, and you ideally want to rank pretty high on this. Here are some problems that you will encounter if you follow this, if you try to do this. The traditional SEO approach will kind of take quite a few steps for you to get there. Yeah. So you will start by noticing that, okay, for agentic orchestration frameworks, there is some Google search volume. Yeah. So we need to go and make an article about it, yes, which is going to take between noticing that there is search volume and actually making an article and then putting it live on the site. Some companies manage to do it very quickly. Some companies require multiple layers of approval to do so, internal approval, kind of making sure that I don't know, the CEO agrees with the way that you're talking about agentic orchestration, things like that, and then putting it actually live on the site. Yeah, so I've put 6 weeks on here, but could be faster, could be a bit slower. And then you need to get indexed on Google. Yeah, you need to get to ranking on the first page. Yes, and you see already there are some results already, so that may take a bit, yeah, for Google to start trusting your site, depending on how new it is, depending on how much related content you have in there. You need to start getting traffic consistently. Then once you're getting some traffic consistently, but you're still not ranking super high, then you will probably go in and optimize the page in order to try and rank in positions 2 to 4, yeah, which may take some time still. Okay, all right, you're getting there. Then you're gonna probably start seeing some conversion to sign up because finally you're getting some meaningful traffic there, and it's kind of looking a little bit better. And then after a couple of weeks, you will see that, okay, conversion is inconsistent. We need to optimize the funnel a bit. We need to maybe put in some intermediate steps, maybe change the language around kind of what we're offering, things like that. And then only then you will probably end up at consistent conversion. And this cycle can take years potentially, yeah, depending on how long it takes to move between the steps. Some companies, as I said, manage to go to do it faster, but it is not uncommon for the break between kind of ranking first page and starting to getting traffic consistently and then getting to position 2 to 4. It's not uncommon for this to take months at least. Yes, so on average, I would say like at least a couple of months for this cycle. I have seen anywhere between 3 months and a year, or maybe even 1.5 years in this cycle. And the problem with this is that in a fast-moving market, yes, the market can already move while you're in the middle of this iteration cycle. So this traditional SEO thinking is developed for much more static industries. If you're operating in a very dynamic industry, such as, for example, agentic orchestration, or anything that has to do with AI these days, a bunch of other DevTool areas also fall within this. But basically, you are going to be operating in a market that moves much faster than this iteration cycle. Yes, and so what this kind of the limitation that this introduces is that when this is done for static markets, and people are trying to use this in dynamic markets, the market can shift underneath them while they're still in the middle of the cycle, and this will mess up the entire point of doing this exercise. Something that's worth noting also is that most of the value in this iteration cycle, yes, that I showed above, is at the end, right? So you are trying to go for ranking in top positions, and then you are expecting to get most of the value here at the end after investing all of this time. Yeah? So what that means is that all of the risk is basically shifting towards the end, yes, because all of these different steps, you're kind of just doing them, and you don't really have a way to know don't have a way to know what is going to be the outcome up until you get to like the final stages. Yes, any useful data that you will kind of be expecting to collect in this process, you will also find it at the further end, because you're spending most of the time convincing the search engine that this is the right thing to promote to the end users and not really speaking to the end users, right? And then how you're going to de-risk this thing is actually actually showing stuff to the users, and you are kind of delaying that until the very, very end. So this iteration cycle is very slow, and it just kind of takes a while to go through all of these steps. And then it still doesn't kind of guarantee the success for you, right? Even if you go through all of these steps, you can finish at the end here, and you will realize that this is not really converting. One other thing that you can realize also is that this is only working with people who are warm, like a warm audience. If you look at this search result page, for example, then you will see that there's a 40 searches a month volume. I think a lot of people can expect this trend to increase, right? So maybe in a couple of years, this is going to be like hundreds of searches per month or something like that. But what can happen is that you don't have a guarantee that this funnel, even if the search volume increases, you don't have a guarantee that this kind of article or whatever you're going to produce for this is still going to be the best information source for people, for those hundreds of new people who are going to be coming into the market. You just don't have a way to know that this is going to work for colder and colder audiences. And then AI search won't really save you here, yes, because you will have the same kind of slow iteration cycle problems in AI search. Frequently, in order to even kind of rank high enough in AI search, you kind of have to be ranking already organically, right, which is kind of creating its own issues as well. And then you have even less data in AI search to be able to optimize towards, right? So this is just kind of becoming even more messy. Google Ads also won't save you here, because here you can see that there's a lot of kind of advertising happening, and yeah, sure, you can try to put in some ads in here, but first of all, the cost is going to be very high. Yes, you will be competing with kind of all of these people who have much better economic engines behind them. So like Snowflake is a massive has a like massive margin, right, on the things that they're selling. Bain company has massive margin on the things that they're selling. So if you're just like building an agentic orchestration framework, it is going to be very difficult for you to compete with these guys unless you can kind of provide some interesting new value, which is not a guarantee in this kind of iteration cycle. And then all of the risks basically that we talked about, they kind of keep compounding, right? So what if you're operating in a dynamic market once again? What happens if the market decides that agentic orchestration is not something that is going to be interesting long term? There have been some things, I think, with the evaluation market, right? So like some people started talking about AI evaluation pretty early on, and then it kind of went up and down, and then it's like not really a trending topic anymore. There's a bunch of companies still doing work, and then there's a high chance that they will become popular again and so on. But the market has kind of decided that maybe that is not a priority, right? We're all about building agents, we're all about building agentic networks and things like that, right? And just the evaluation seems to be like not very interesting for now. What if kind of while you're going through this iteration cycle, such a shift happens? And then what if the just kind of if this entire cycle takes way too long for you to be able to prove any kind of value on it? Yeah, because this can take months to get there. Kind of what happens if this is just way too long for how long you're willing to wait? You can run into situations where like technical SEO issues or indexing issues just delay this whole timeline for you, and you don't really have a way to kind of do much about it, right? You just kind of have to keep fixing it, and then this delays the final outcome that you're aiming for. And then what if you're kind of going through the cycle, but then there's somebody else who is faster during the cycle or has more budget during the cycle, and then they just outcompete you then, yes? And then what if, like if you're getting to the end of the cycle and it has been already 1.5 years and the hype cycle has passed, right? And then, as I mentioned, kind of what happens if you are kind of building this entire funnel, then you realize it doesn't really work for a colder and colder audience. So all of these problems with this traditional SEO approach for these kinds of newer products in faster moving markets. So what is the actual solution for such fast moving markets? First of all, you have to think of SEO as a way of getting certain amount of traffic of a certain kind on a certain timeline. What that means is that people who are coming to the search result page, apparently kind of there's maybe like 40 of them a month, looking for this exact phrase. Could be more, could be less. This is just an estimate, obviously. But you are kind of getting certain kind of people who are already aware of this concept, and they're looking for kind of a specific kind of solution, right? They have a specific mindset that they are coming with to this page. If you are looking to get to more people, like, I don't know, 40 people a month is probably like not enough for most of the venture-backed startups out there. So you probably want more people, right? So how do you kind of work with SEO concepts, or kind of how do you understand SEO data and use that to actually get more traffic than what is available for this particular search term? And then if you are looking for a faster timeline, maybe you don't have a year to wait, yeah? Then what can you do to get there faster? The expectations just need to be right that for SEO, for example, if you are aiming to like 10x, what the opportunity is giving you, then you're just not gonna get there. Something important to also keep in mind is that SEO does not equal content marketing, and content marketing does not equal SEO. They are related but separate work streams. They connect in a bunch of ways, but a lot of people are now conflating SEO with content marketing and content marketing with SEO, but they are completely different things, right? You can think kind of while you are kind of doing content marketing, you can think about distribution early at the ideation phase, and that would basically mean that when you're thinking about content ideas, or when you think about the opportunities that are there in the market, you will consider SEO as one of the ways to distribute that to your end users, but you are not going to be considering it as the only and exclusive way of getting that to the people, and you can think of other ways of getting this to the end users. And then something quite critical also is that it is really important to understand, are you time constrained or cost constrained? If you are time constrained, then it doesn't really make sense to try and go through this entire cycle, for the reasons like a lot of people are trying to go for SEO traffic because they understand that this is kind of long-term sustainable and free. Yeah, so you don't have to, when you're ranking via SEO, then technically you don't have to pay for every click. Yeah, you kind of pay once, or like you pay for this process basically, but then the outcomes you're getting, like you're not paying per click as if you would in advertising. But then if you are time constrained, then you actually should be willing to spend more budget rather than more time on these kinds of opportunities. And that basically means that you need to be understanding how do you spend money in order to save time and to not have to go through this entire cycle. Yeah? So this is how you approach kind of SEO in these fast-moving markets, and this is kind of hopefully an explanation of why people are failing in these fast-moving markets, because they're trying to apply this traditional SEO approach to technical content distribution.